What Ronaldinho Gaucho has just said in an exclusive interview here in Brazil is going to make the very foundations of Madrid tremble. It's outrageous. England is being deceived about what really happened on that pitch against Mallorca. If you think Vinicius Jr. was to blame for the 2-1 defeat, you're falling for the biggest media trap of the decade. I'm your Brazilian insider, and what I bring today isn't just an analysis, it's a live grenade dropped in a lap of the European press. Ronaldinho didn't mince his words. He looked straight at the camera and fired off, "They're trying to kill the joy of football, and the world is applauding." The atmosphere at Som Moix was heavy. Real Madrid took to the pitch looking like a giant with feet of clay. And when Mallorca scored, the silence in Brazil was deafening. But what no one expected was the return of Eder Militao. 4 months of pain, 4 months of silence. He comes back, rises higher than anyone else, and scores in the 88th minute. It seemed like the perfect comeback story, but the joy lasted only 3 minutes. 3 minutes for the defensive system to collapse like a house of cards. Mariki's goal in stoppage time was the final nail in a coffin, and then the carnage began. The English press, the London tabloids, immediately started pointing the finger, and the target, as always, is Vinicius Jr.'s chest. They say he was isolated. They say he lost focus. But Ronaldinho Gaucho, the man who made the Bernabeu give a standing ovation, delivered the real verdict here in Brazil. Vini isn't losing focus. Vini is being hunted while others are protected by expensive suits. Ronaldinho was unequivocal in saying that what they're doing to Vinicius today is an attempt to sanitize football, taking away the dribble, taking away the boldness, and turning everything into this mechanical, soulless game that the Europeans love so much. Here in Brazil, the press is up in arms. We do not accept this narrative. Why is it that when Real Madrid lose, the front page of the English newspapers is a photo of Vinicius Jr. complaining, but when Kylian Mbappe disappears in a match, they call it a period of adaptation? It's a hypocrisy that stinks, me friends. Mbappe was a ghost against Mallorca. He didn't make the difference, he didn't dribble, he didn't frighten anyone. But where are the fierce criticisms? They don't exist. There's an invisible shield over the stars they consider their own. Ronaldinho reminded us of something fundamental. In his day, dribbling was a weapon. Today, for the European media, Vinicius' dribbling is seen as provocation that deserves punishment. The magician was clear. If I played today with this kind of persecution, I would have left the pitch in the first half. He argues that Brazil is witnessing a coordinated movement to destabilise the greatest talent we have in Europe. Brazilian fans on social media are talking about nothing else. The feeling is one of outrage. We're watching Real Madrid hand La Liga to Barcelona on a plate, and the blame is being placed on the shoulders of the one who tries hardest to create something different. Let's talk about facts. Real Madrid have lost 3 of their last 6 matches. This is a crisis. This is what, in England, they would call an absolute shambles. But their focus isn't on Arbeloa's poor tactics. Their focus isn't on the lack of protection in midfield. The focus is on how many times Vinicius looked at the referee. It's a bad joke. Meanwhile, in the England squad, we see the so-called stars disappear in decisive matches, and yet they're treated as misunderstood heroes. Where's the pressure on that winning DNA they go on about so much? The way we see it here in Brazil, Vinicius Jr. is playing against 2 teams, Mallorca on the pitch and the international press off it. Ronaldinho said that what frightens him most is the silence of his teammates in moments of clear injustice. He compared it to the Galacticos era, when respect for Brazilian talent was unquestionable. Nowadays, it seems there's an unspoken permission to kick, hunt down and insult Vinicius as long as the final result fits the European narrative. I, as your insider, have been observing the behind-the-scenes movements. The Brazilian press has already started to suggest that the atmosphere in the dressing room is strange. It's not just a defeat, it's a crack in the trust. And when Ronaldinho Gaucho decides to speak, he doesn't do it to sugarcoat things, he speaks to warn. He feels that real football, proper football, is being replaced by a tactical bureaucracy that punishes talent. And you there in England, do you agree with what the wizard said? Or are you going to keep believing that Real Madrid's problem is a player who tries the impossible while the rest of the team just watch from the sidelines? What happened at Son Moix wasn't an accident, it was a symptom of a club that's losing its identity and trying to find a scapegoat instead of admitting that the planning has failed. Ronaldinho's verdict is an open wound. He says that Brazil is ready to defend its star, and that Europe still hasn't realised that without Vini's joy, Real Madrid's just another rich club with no direction. This is just the beginning of the conversation. What comes next in Ronaldinho's analysis of the clash against Bayern Munich is even more explosive. He gave a real warning about what will happen in the Champions League if this persecution continues. But before we get to the war mentality that Ronaldinho proposed, the war mentality that Ronaldinho Gaucho put forward is not for the faint-hearted. He went beyond tactical criticism. He spoke about soul. And what he said about the clash against Bayern Munich in the Champions League is an earthquake warning for Europe.